What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. Remember to comment, like, and subscribe on our YouTube channel at Jack O'Hara TV. This is episode 742 of the podcast with the one and only Mr. Danny Klein, who was recommended to me by at least 12 people.
Man, I'm grateful to be here. It's super awesome, man. I'm just a regular guy pursuing the dreams, pushing the mission. So awesome to be here, Jack.
That's what all big names say. I'm just a regular guy. I'm just a regular guy. We found a commonality, though. We both know where Avalon, New Jersey is. One of probably 3 people out here that might know where that place is.
Yeah, dude, nobody knows where Stone Harbor, where Avalon, New Jersey is. It's like, you talk about Jersey, this is like it's a little family tradition that we were just like kind of talking about. And like nobody knows about it. They've been to North Jersey, Middle Jersey, or Sea Isle, but never South Stone Harbor and Avalon.
Stone Harbor, we always went to for the outlets, for the mall. I mean, the girls always did. We saw movies down there, putt golf.
Putt is a tradition.
They got a Zoltar there that'll tell you your future.
Yep.
All that crazy shit. And then, of course, Wildwood, which Johnny here was talking about. Wildwood, it gets crazy. That's where it's like amusement parks and.
No, it's crazy. Lot. So like literally, I've only missed 1 year of Stone Harbor. And it's when I first got in sales selling cars. And like I couldn't take off because I was gonna hit a bonus. My managers were like, "Dude, you can't take off. Like, we're not allowed to give you off or whatever." And it was like tradition. Like if you leave, you're kind of like not like shunned from the family, but it was like you gotta make it. Yeah. And it was the first year that I missed, and I just felt like so horrible. And I was like, I never want to like miss the important things in life. As much as the Elliott Group and Andy and our entire team is running so hard, just like you're with Justin to earn it all. Like we don't want to miss those big things in life. And like that was one moment. I was 20 years old at the time, and I was like, I just never want to miss these big moments with the family, with the kids and everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it just comes down to communication. Like, Andy and his wife and his family is very important to him. Like, that's something you can relate to easily. Like, go do your thing, come back, kick some ass. And then for me personally, I haven't been back in 5 years.
5 years.
I'll visit once a year during the holidays, but I, for whatever reason, just can't make the Avalon trip. My grandmother's getting up there. She'll FaceTime me and be like, "You gotta make it this year." Like, I'm there.
You gotta make it for her, for grandma.
I'm gonna make it for the first time in 5 years. But that's crazy because I think you're one of 2 people that I know. I have a house in that area.
It holds a special place in my heart and my entire family's heart, like Stone Harbor. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Virginia.
Nice.
So in Northern Virginia, pretty much my entire life till I was probably 19 years old.
Like how close to like Arlington?
I sold cars up in Woodbridge, but I lived in Fredericksburg, Virginia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I was just in Frederick, Maryland.
Okay.
I don't know how far that would be from Virginia, but I was just all up and down the East Coast. We went from Jersey to New York, down to Maryland, all the way up to Boston, just doing interviews, meeting up with family, doing just the whole shebang.
I think it's cool, like, it seems like you got people and connections everywhere, and once you start to get a couple good relationships, it's just like, it almost is like exponential. It's like, when you get 1, then you get 2, once you get 2, then you get 4, and it just keeps kind of like going, and then...
As long as you're a good dude, they're like, let me introduce you to so-and-so, Like, that's all it matters.
100%. I think it goes for anything in life. I see people, like, all the time, and they're like, how do I make my content better? I'm like, well, are you good? Like, do you have value within yourself? Because no matter what camera guy you got, what editing, whatever software, if you're not the content, then like people aren't gonna like you because they're watching you, not the edits.
Are you comfortable enough to share your own beliefs that swirl around in your head constantly? I mean, if we can get a zoom up on this, you're double mic'd. So your content guy Johnny's here, and then we had to mic you up for the podcast through that camera, through the rodeo mic.
Double mic, baby.
You're double mic because you're trying to be the content. You walk in. I was telling them, I'm like, he's gonna walk in with his camera guy. We're gonna do the bro hug thing. They're gonna edit it into a video later. Like I know the whole deal. When Rio did the podcast too, it was the same thing. His video goes behind him. I'm like, all right, they're gonna edit this later. Yeah. And it's just what it is. Mm-hmm. I think that's what Brad Lee said. The initial guy who was just like, you got to be the content, and people still didn't really understand the concept. Like, just be mic'd up. And granted, not everybody has the privilege of having a camera guy follow them around all day. Yeah. But if you do have that privilege, then make the most of it.
Yep. I think it's like the explosion of this entire like education, self-help industry that everybody sees the money in. They're like, oh, I can go and I can teach this, but they've never actually gone and done anything, or they never have like built a team, or they haven't done anything crazy enough. So they're trying to skip the steps, I call it, of like the game. Mm-hmm. And eventually, like, you see these guys that, you can tell right at the gate, you're like fake followers, fake engagement. And it's like the game is going to eventually expose you because of like you're trying too hard because you're not actually the content.
No, and I don't know where that stems from too. Maybe insecurities. Because how many accounts do you see out there that have like, say, 30,000 followers? They get 200 views on their reels. They're getting like less than 30 likes on their posts, and you're just like, it's obvious.
Dude, I can pick it out like that. And like, I would rather connect with a guy that's got 5,000 followers and I can tell his engagement, I can tell he's real, and I can tell that he's like on his way up. I'd much rather help that guy and put that guy in the right room than a guy who's like trying to be somebody that he's not and is putting on like a persona.
We were actually talking about this. We had Ben and Regina Lyles, who own a company called Bikini Bean Coffee Company. So he's got like 5 or 6 locations out here. And we're talking about people that they would hire for their business. So they're like, they're not just going to be some, because their whole concept is girls in bikinis serving you coffee. They're like, we're not just going to hire some person who has no personality, doesn't know how to talk to people, has no characters, just an entitled person because they have good looks. How many of those people do you see out in Old Town Scottsdale that have over 100,000 followers on social media and don't even know how to communicate with someone?
Dude, it has been such an eye-opener because I'm new to this whole like world. I just started selling. We started getting a lot of exposure super fast. Right? And like, you know, you look up to these people, I'm like, oh, we're going to meet this guy. We're going to see this guy. And you meet him and it's like almost more than not, unfortunately, it's like they don't even really necessarily even meet the expectations. And not like necessarily that like you have this expectation in your mind, but it's like you're just expecting them to at least just be cool. They don't need to necessarily be Andy Elliott screaming 24/7, right? Like you're not expecting Andy Elliott to scream in your face, but you are maybe expecting like just him to be a cool person, right? And it's like that doesn't happen, you know?
No, and I mean it's tough to be authentically yourself, but at the same time, because it's interesting with Andy, is that, and he probably does have his haters. Just soft
I think
people.
The haters have fueled our entire business.
That's the thing, though. It's worked in his favor, you know. But it's like it's rare to be authentically yourself and not have haters.
Yeah.
Everybody's always looking like, oh, look at him.
Yep. I think the tight pants, the nipples, the big
tight
arms,
shirts,
the tight shirts,
tight polos.
right? The amount of comments. I think that has like fueled the algorithm, right?
Yeah.
And then I mean, obviously his character and the training that comes with it, but people that like just comment. I feel like people just sit on their phone all day and they just scroll looking for shit to like talk down on.
Yep, like one hand in their pants, the other just scrolling. They're just like, oh, there's Brad again, there's Andy again. Why do you follow them in the first place? You know, you want to be them. You want to at least have their success, right? That's where that envy and that negativity comes from.
Yeah.
When you're really looking at yourself in the mirror, it's like, oh, you hate him because you're not him.
Yeah, I agree, man.
That's tough. So how long have you been with the Elliott Group?
So I've been with Andy for about 3 years.
Which you have to build that camaraderie, you have to build that trust.
Yeah.
That's a dude that probably doesn't trust easy.
Yeah.
Until you earn it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think too, like some of it, like a lot of our guys are underdogs, and there was a lot of trust that happened very fast when like in our initial wave, because I was training with him when he had probably the place we were training was smaller than the size of like this, you know, this place, the living room that we're in right now. And I flew from Virginia to Oklahoma to one of his first seminars, and like he didn't have a whole lot of following, right? So when I first came in, it was like, you know, my story, I actually ended up losing my dad, right? So he drowned in a pool, and he called me like 2 days later. He's like, I want you to come work for me. Like, you know, I've been seeing you grow, I've been seeing you kill it. And I was like, dude, fuck it. Like, this is so, like, this is so crazy. And I was like, but part of me was like, dude, you gotta go. Like, this is like your higher purpose, like this is your calling. And I didn't really understand anything, but I had this feeling that was like pulling me towards, you know, something that was bigger. So I was like, dude, fuck it, like I'm in, I'll figure out the rest of it later. Like once this kind of passes through, like I'm flying out and I'm all in. So there was a lot of trust, I think, with at least me personally, like with Andy pretty quick, just because of like I left everything behind 30 days later, dropped everything, spent like $10,000 to move, pack my stuff, buy new furniture, lease, all this stuff.
Did part of you need like a fresh start?
100%. I was around I was 19, I was 20 years old, and I was just around people that were smoking weed, playing video games, like every night. It was
Sounds like the East Coast to me, man.
Just the same shit, and I'm like, I knew I was built for more, but I was trapped in this zone of like being comfortable and just chilling, and like, hey, it's cool, bro, like you're doing a little bit better than most. And I think that's where people just go to like die, right? They do a little bit better than most, and then just stay there, and that's just not where I wanted to go. And once I lost my father, it was like nothing else really mattered. Like I could lose all my friends, I could lose everything. Like I just wanted to do more for me and prove to myself that like I had more in me than just kind of coasting through life.
Yeah. No, and then once you get to that level, it's just nonstop. You just want to keep climbing and keep climbing and keep climbing.
It's like,
and here's the thing, though. It's so easy to fall out of it, too.
Yes.
How many times have you been like, I'm not doing the best that I can be doing right now. I feel like I'm constantly being like, all right, I'll travel to Vegas, I'll do 10 shows, come back, take 2 days off, and I'm already itching. I'm like, what am I doing the last 2 days? Why am I relaxing? I mean, sometimes you have to relax, but especially in that
I think
world.
like constantly, almost like every week, every month, like I'm having a moment or a time where I'm like, I could be going harder in this moment. I could be going harder like with what I'm doing and my long-term goals. And it's just like this constant awareness of like, it's okay to be, behind and not in full force momentum, but you have to be able to identify that and then self-correct, right? The person that can self-correct the fastest will be forever wealthy, because like everybody is like fucking up. But the only difference is the people that are saying, hey, I'm fucking up, but I'm also going to fix it fast. But people don't want to identify that because they have ego. The people that really want to grow, really want to win, they're going to identify it fast, because it's like, imagine if you had a bucket, right? And your bucket, and the goal is like the business is your bucket and it's full of water, and it'll never get full if it has holes in it. So if you want to actually get the bucket full, then you got to keep plugging those holes. And there's always going to be holes. So it's just like, how fast can you plug them?
That's a really good analogy and a really good way to look at it, because some people will just sit there and be like, I'll take care of it later.
People say
procrastinate.
People say that they want something, but their actions generally reflect different.
Well, I think the simplest yet most effective saying, at least in my life, was always actions speak louder than words.
Yep.
And some people are like, why is he so quiet? I was a total introvert growing up. I'm just like, I'm listening to people, honestly. I can better dissect things and know like, okay, I don't want to be around that crowd. That crowd's all right. This is the type of person I want to be. Who can I find that kind of replicates the way I'm thinking? As opposed to people just being like, oh, he's just shy. It's like, no, I'm actually kind of analyzing everything and preparing myself for a better future.
Yeah, you have a high level of awareness. I think
exactly.
The people that can like have the ability to look at what's going on around them and then figure out, oh, I don't want to be around that crowd. Oh, these people are doing something good. I need to figure out a way to be able to get in the room, which is what you've done, right? I need to figure out a way to get in front of these people. Now, how do I get in front of these people, right? You do these podcasts, you grow, you add value, and like you've just been highly aware. And I think most people that are trying to figure out this game are just not really aware, right? It's like the salesperson that is only selling and then not taking care of the clients and not over delivering. And it's like, dude, you could get 10 more clients from that one customer if you just took care of them at the highest level. And you're making work harder for yourself than actually working smarter, aka being aware.
Would you say, and I'm sure the answer is yes, you're getting more referrals based on the clients you are taking care of versus just the leads that are coming in?
Yeah, I mean, personally, like I'm gonna call all the leads, right? Like obviously I'm in sales, so I'm gonna call all the leads. But me personally, like as you grow and scale, not only in sales, but in business with what we're doing, which is, we're consulting different businesses, we're coaching salespeople. So I wanna be able to look at like, who's my ideal client, right? And if I'm working with Dan and Rio, right, with Alpha Army, then like I would much rather take the couple hours of time that it may be cold calling and put that time into just servicing them and helping them, because how many people do they know, right, at the level of business that they're doing, that I could go and also help those other people? Because if they've invested more than most, well, why don't I figure out who their friends are? Instead of going here and starting over every single day, I've already gained this momentum, so I might as well take care of this person. Most people think that like once I get this big deal, they're like, oh, I've closed the big deal, man, I'm a savage, I'm a killer. And it's like, dude, it's just getting started.
Also on the topic of like you being like, hey, let me go see what they're doing. I don't know if you experienced this back east. Obviously, I don't think an entrepreneurial mindset and way of thinking is huge out there. When we came to Arizona, it was everywhere. Everybody wanted to collaborate. Everybody wanted to help each other out. But like if you went to someone in Virginia and were like, oh, I'm going to go to them and see how they're doing. It's like, no, they're not going to help you because they look at you as competition. Where everybody, I feel like here, wants everybody to win.
I think just something about Arizona, like as I meet more people, there's just so much forward growth. I think so many people have traveled here, right? Like you haven't been in Arizona your whole life. You've been here for a long time, like 7 years.
Enough, yeah.
And I'm just noticing that like most people that are in Arizona, especially like Scottsdale, haven't lived here necessarily their whole life, and they're just wanting to add value and to grow. And there's just so much abundance with where we're at. I mean, like, dude, this is freaking beautiful. Like in Virginia, where I'm from, like this doesn't exist. There's no like city life. It's like, you can have like that one business owner that you might be able to get advice from sometimes. But like, dude, now I go in the elevator and I meet a guy that has a Ferrari and an entire business, and it's like, dude, just that 5-minute conversation could like change my entire perspective.
Oh, and it changed. And 9 times out of 10, they're nice about it too.
Yeah.
We're back east, everybody's just in a grumpy mood. We're like here, it's like, oh, you can approach someone like an Andy Elliott. He's like, oh, what's up, man?
Yeah.
What do you want to talk about? how can I be of service to you?
Yep.
Versus no, like you have to earn it the way I did because I went through the shit growing up. It's like no, everybody's trying to climb that ladder. Like if you really want it that bad, you're going to stay on the ladder. If not, you're going to fall off. It's going to be your own doing at the end of the day, whether or not you stick around anyways.
Well, I think like it's just a higher understanding of like I call it like the game.
Yeah.
I refer to like certain topics like over and over again because the people that may are like doing better than most, right? That above average zone, they get to like right in Virginia, if somebody's making 250,000, they are the king daddy, right? They think that they've reached this ultimatum when like you could literally go and there's just another level. And I think out here there's so many different levels of like people that like I wake up in the morning, this dude has like Rolls Royce parked next to me, there's an R8, there's a Ferrari on the next row, and it's like there's just more levels to the game, and people realize that like, dude, this is never ending like game of growth. It doesn't like just stop once I hit this monetarily amount or I get this cool penthouse or I get this car. It's like it's not about the money, it's about the actual being and living the life and contributing value. And the people that actually contribute the most value will obviously get paid the most, but people think it's backwards. They think the more money I get, the more successful I am, but at a certain point people smell your selfish intent and they don't let you up. Right, that next level in the game, the level 4, level 5 players, they can smell your intent. These multimillionaires, they're not going to elevate you because at that level, they're good on money, right? It's like they're going to make their money with or without you. So like, are you going to surround yourself with a good team, with good people, and then go way further together and not just a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, for you, because you talk about like, I'm not a huge car guy. I don't really care what is this, a Fossil watch? It's like $120. Like it does its purpose. Yours is a little bit more fancy than mine.
Expensive G-Shock.
Yeah, it's a little bit more expensive, but like what is the purpose for you? Because you talk about obviously providing value, kind of like that great feeling of knowing that you're making a difference, you're making an impact. And obviously your reward is the bigger the clientele, the more money you're going to make. And at the end of the day, the more money you have, the more freeing your life is, whether it's for you, whether it's for your girlfriend, maybe a family one day, maybe whoever you're surrounding yourself with, right?
Yeah.
But like when it comes down to the whole, because the stigma around an Andy Elliott or a Bradley and why people want to get involved is probably because they're not making money at all. They want to make a lot of money like them, right? So what is it for you specifically that kind of drove you to it and you were like, I love this culture, I love helping people, but what's kind of like the thing that you consider successful?
It's an amazing question. I love that. I think success, somebody asked me this question the other day, and I'm trying to recall the exact answer, but I typed out something really like, really in depth. And I think it's more or less like I'm in control of my own life. I'm not forced to do anything. I'm in control of my emotions. I'm striving towards a certain or common goal. And like, I think it boils down to just like progress, right? Like I'm elevating closer. I'm enjoying, my life. I'm just in control. I think like people think success is this amount of money, and it goes back the other way. If I'm in control of my environment, if I'm growing, if I'm doing all the right things, then you will be making money, right? If you're truly trying to grow. But people get it reversed. So I would just say like progress, man.
Yeah. I mean, what's the point of making a shitload of money if you have zero time? You're just clocking in and clocking out. That's the worst thing. Like when I had a full-time job, it was, I got to get to bed at a reasonable hour because I got to be up tomorrow at 5 a.m. if I want to get my life in order by the time I have to clock in at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. It was just brutal. And not that the jobs are bad out there, but it's just like, I wish I was out doing my own thing right now. Like for example, there was one opportunity, a buddy of mine was opening Dos Hombres, Brian Cranston and Aaron Paul's, one of their tequila brands out here in Scottsdale, and they were doing the ribbon cutting ceremony. He's like, dude, I'll introduce you to Aaron and Brian. It was like a Tuesday at 2 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
And my manager's he's a very cool guy, but like, I'm like, hey man, like big opportunity for the podcast, big opportunity for this. Like, dude, I can't let you go. Sorry. And I just thought in that moment, like, fair on his part, but at the same time, I got to get out of this because I can't miss opportunities like that. It got to a point where I felt like I was missing opportunities.
Yes.
Because it's difficult. You get to a certain point where it's like, oh, Danny, let me introduce you to Justin. Let me introduce you to Andy, Brad, whatever. And you're like, I need to be free in order to have these interactions.
I always say that the biggest risk in life is actually taking no risk at all and staying in the same position next month and next year as you are right now. And like people think that like, oh, like we sell seminars, we sell education, we sell like just more like things, right? But people like think, oh, well, what if I waste this $1,000 or what if happens? It was like, what if you keep making the same amount of money, right? If your goal is to make more money, like you should go out and be trying to do anything in your power to go and make more money, whether it's our program, whether it's anybody else's, like if you think it's good, just go and do it, and like put yourself and keep pushing that pressure.
Mm-hmm. And that's what's going to turn that, what was it, that stone into a diamond, or that's basically what you become.
Yeah, pressure makes diamonds or burst pipes.
That's right. It's either way. It's like a double-edged sword. It's either you're going to work hard for a good life. If you work hard, things get easier.
Yes.
If you want an easy life, things are just going to get harder.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're killing it though. Like it's crazy to see, because so many people will get into this feeling like, all right, I got nothing to lose. I need to make a better life for myself. And then they see that sliver of success, and they're like you were saying before, it's like you make one big deal, you're like, I made it.
Yeah, or the other way around. Like I think sometimes a big deal can it can make somebody or it can break them. And I see oftentimes like, yeah, it'll break them, meaning that they're like, that's their big deal, and now they think that they've arrived, right? This arrived feeling. Or on the other end where it's like they're just getting started. And if you study enough like mentors, you study Tony Robbins, you study these guys that have paved the path for the self-help, the self-development space, it all boils back to the word identity. Right, like you wouldn't be doing more podcasts if you didn't believe that you were like that you could become this person, that you could be like a Bradley, that you could be like a whoever, right? Whoever Jack wants to be, right? You didn't believe that you could be that person. So it comes back down to like that identity shift. And sometimes, like for me, my biggest deals always allowed me to think, oh, dude, like I can be the young guy and I can serve these guys that are older than me. Like in the beginning, I felt weird servicing clients that were, making more money than me, or were older than me, or like, especially like men, when it's like 50-year-old men, it's like, I was like a 21-year-old kid when I first started, and it wasn't an identity issue. And now we're helping people from all ages, like all walks, and it's like, it doesn't have any correlation. It all just falls back to your identity and what skill sets you actually have.
Mm-hmm. When did you develop these skill sets that are now
I think it's been
in full control now?
I think it's been like an ongoing thing, and there was a moment, I think, once my dad died, and I came down to Arizona and I started just selling, right? And I wasn't doing that well in the beginning, but I started stacking these wins, and we talk about becoming undeniable, and I started just stacking, and eventually you start to just build up this identity of who you are, and it's not necessarily just one moment. I think the one moment in switching my brain was obviously like losing the person closest to me, but then it was like just a constant build and constant elevation of knowing who I wanted to be, how I wanted to go and, portray my message. It's like there's guys that we teach, and it's like, why are they still not shooting content when they know they need to be shooting content? Or why are they not studying sales if they are in a sales role and they know that they need to do that in order to make more money? I think it's just been a constant, skill stack.
What were some of the odd jobs you worked growing up in Virginia?
So I'm kind of known for my story from being a Chinese delivery driver.
Fantastic.
So I dropped out of school. I was just working, different odd-end jobs, serving and stuff like that. But I delivered Chinese food for a little over a year, and literally like they feed me, just work, and like it was crazy. It was actually really good money for like what you think it would be. Like you think I'd be making minimum wage, but I was making like $300 a day, $400 a day sometime in tips, because people would order large amounts of food. They'd order $100, $150 for a family dinner, and I'd have the little iPad, and it would be like tip 15, 20, or 25. So they would automatically press the 15 or whatever, which was $25, and I'm taking deliveries. So, but Chinese delivery is probably one of the weirder jobs that I worked.
It's kind of odd that they would hire you too, just white guy. And
yeah, I mean, I don't know. My buddy was one of my best friends growing up was Filipino, and he had kind of caught me at a super low point, like in my life. I dropped out of school and was playing Fortnite, just drinking, smoking weed, and like kind of had just lost myself, right? I'm just like at my, I was living in a one-bedroom apartment with my dad, so I'm just literally just chilling, living my life, and he's like, dude, you gotta fucking do something, bro. Like I'm working, and like it doesn't matter if it's a low-end job or if it's something, like I know you want to go and do something, but like you gotta get the fuck up. And so he's like, I'm gonna get you a job, like it's really not that bad. And I was like, well, I gotta do something, like I had to just start. And I was searching for like the perfect opportunity to go and, make money, when in reality I just needed to like just start and do something. So
did you drop out of school with the intent to do something and just didn't do it? Or was it just like you were like, I'm not a student and I'm not going to make anything of myself?
So Gary Vee was my initial like inspiration to drop out of school. And he's like, just go try some things, like just get out there and go and like put yourself in the room. And that was my initial like intent. that ain't really how it worked out. Like,
Yeah.
I had bad habits, so I thought that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I thought I wanted to do drop shipping and this and wholesaling, and I'm looking at all these shiny objects, right? The quick ways to make money, and I never committed to anything. And I just lost myself because I didn't have anybody to say, hey, bro, you can do this. It's really not that hard. Just all these online, like, just videos I'm watching. So, like, yeah.
Man, I mean, it's tough to put your motivation, I'll say, because it comes down to discipline. It's tough to put your motivation into action sometimes because you're thinking, oh, it's going to be great, and then you procrastinate. You're like, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And a few months down the line, you're like, I can't wait till I start this, and you're just not doing it. You're not putting that into action whatsoever. Like, just take that first step. It's going to be
100%.
uncomfortable. It's like stepping into like a cold plunge or something.
Dude,
like, it's going to suck. But like once you're done, it feels great.
feels
and then you want to
amazing.
do it again. You want to do it again. And then you get to the point where you trained yourself to know, like, oh, I'm comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yep.
And then you continue to grow.
It's like a theme that I live by: execution over perfection. Like, I would much rather execute, fail fast, right? Fail 5 times over than sit there and be still trying to think about, like, what's the perfect opportunity.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I always make this analogy or this story about, like, there's 2 people that run a race, right? There's one guy who's trying to keep the perfect tempo, the perfect breathing. He's making sure his shoes are tied perfect and tight, and that he's got all these right things, that he's hydrated. And there's another guy that's like, that just like don't fucking care. He's tripping, he's scraped up, he's fallen a few times, but he just has the heart and grit to just move fast and get it done. And generally you'll see that, like, the most successful entrepreneurs and the most successful people in life, they've failed more and they embrace failure and talk about failure more than the person who thinks that they're perfect or this is a secret plan to get me to success. Because they've spent so much time trying to figure out the plan, and the other guy's like, I already tried that plan and that one and that one and that one while you're still making that one plan. So like, whenever I see something, I've trained myself to just execute fast. Like, pick up the phone, call the lead fast. I don't need to know what's going on. Like, I'd rather just get in the fire. Because if I can train myself to move fast, then I can do 10 times more than the other person that's trying to, like, hypothetically research and make the...
Oh, like if you woke up this morning, you're like, all right, I got 1 lead today. I hope it pans out, and it doesn't. You're just like, oh, I'm pissed off the rest of the day. Like, you're not actually trying.
Yeah.
It's like, keep moving. You should always have, like, for me, like, whether it's like podcasts or interviews or just projects in general, day in and day out, right?
Yep.
So like today we did what, 2 or 3? This is the, I guess, second. But I also had 3 people who canceled today. We're like, hey, can we do another day? Like, no problem, because I got other ones and we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
'Cause it's like, the more you, I guess that's not really like a great example of failure, but like if you have like those things, it's like, oh, it didn't work out, and you get all groggy and pissy and bitchy about it. It's like, you don't really have enough opportunities or have put yourself in the room to have as many opportunities.
Yeah.
Because I'm at a point where it's like, if people reschedule, it's like, that's life. We'll get it done one day. And then you're just intentional about rescheduling or whatever, right?
People get so flustered when things don't go, like, perfect to plan versus, like, just how you're like, oh, it's whatever. Like, because imagine if you, like, brought a weird or a bad attitude of, oh, man, these guys canceled on me and I got to do this one with Danny. It's like, just because you didn't get, like, that many, you could have maximized the one opportunity, or it could have put you on a path to do something different, but people can't switch their perspective to just be in a good state. I always teach my guys, like, if you can master your state, you're in control, like, of your entire life, and master your emotions.
I don't know the last time I was in a bad mood, honestly. When I think about it, it's just like, no, it's like, what's the worst that could happen? I mean, besides like tragedy and stuff like that, that's obviously very difficult to get over.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine how you went through that, especially 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it's difficult. And then you made the big shift to come out here and kind of just change your perspective altogether. And you had to force yourself to do it. But for the most part, it's like, what, like if I stub my toe, is that going to ruin the rest of my day? No, it's like, get over it. Like, life happens, and it happens. You're not going to go back and change it. Just move on, create more opportunities for yourself, and just like get your shit together. Nobody wants to be around someone like that who's bringing down everybody else's energy because I'm in a bad mood today because someone talked meanly to me on the phone.
Yeah. I see salespeople all the time. They get told no once. And then they're like,
that's a wrap.
They're like, dude, what do I say on this next call? And they're so worried about like fucking it up.
And then they think everybody's
it's
gonna
like,
be like that.
Dude, it's okay. Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, I'm almost like a hippie in terms of like my mindset, where it's like I'm running hard, I'm running fast and aggressive, and I'm getting things done. But also like, if shit don't work out, dude, it's all good. It's okay. Like, that's just like a thing that I've gotten used to. Whether like, no matter what happens in life, like everything's okay. It's all gonna work itself out.
What was the beginning like at Elliott Group for you? Were there a lot of learning curves, or?
Yeah, the beginning was definitely crazy. So I think we were all just running off of just straight belief in the vision of Andy. He was training us every single day. We would have hour trainings every single day. All we really had was a list of leads, and we had a community of people that we had contributed so much value to off of YouTube, and we were coaching them just for free. We had just done so much value. So it was crazy in the beginning. It was a lot of like trying to figure out like where do we want to go, like what direction are we going to stay in automotive, like what does this vision really look like? There's tons of learning curves. I think for the first 6 months I kept at the same amount of like revenue or closed deals. I couldn't break that new threshold until I decided that like I was going to have to make a major change. I was going to have to stay later. I was going to have to study more people, and like there was just it's even to this day it's still like learning curve after learning curve after learning curve, and I just approach it a little bit faster than before.
What's like the average time on a call with a lead?
That's a great question.
I mean, I know it varies obviously based on how many questions they have and stuff, but like what would you say is like the average like good call when like either closing a lead or like coming close?
Yeah,
like
so we offer a lot of different things. We have $300 products, and we got products that are creeping on 6 figures. So sometimes, the 6-figure call is going to be sometimes like an hour, and then the deal's not going to get closed within an hour. It's going to take 2 or 3 or 4 more meetings, and then you got the $300 course where it's like, if you do a good job, that course should be 10 to 15 minutes. You figure out the pain, you prescribe the solution, you go right for the close, you get the card, and you set up the account. So it depends on if it's an inbound or outbound, or if it's a cold lead, warm lead. It's all going to kind of vary, but I think a fresh inbound lead that comes in 10, 15 minutes.
Oh, really?
Is a good time frame, yeah.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, you can knock out like 100 calls in a day if you wanted to.
Yeah.
How many calls have you done in a day?
I generally I'm really good at the intro and having like a good conversation. So whether it's like a cold lead and getting in on time, I generally lean on more talk time than I guess call volume, because I'm not necessarily cold calling as much as I was in the beginning. In the beginning I was doing 100 plus calls because I'm trying to get people to answer. I'm trying to find someone to have a conversation with and figure out who I can sell, right? Because we weren't running ads, weren't doing any of these things. Versus now, I'm very much like, if I get somebody to answer and they are open to hearing me, talk, I'm talking to people for 20, 30 minutes, or I can have maybe 15, 20 phone calls in a day, because if I'm talking to people for 20, 30 minutes, there's your entire day in 15 phone calls.
Worst case, you're just putting in repetition after repetition after repetition, and then you're gaining some relationships. People will be like, oh, Danny was a nice guy. Worst case scenario.
I've had like some really good callbacks, and this isn't really big in sales. Like we call it the be back bus. Like, hey, I'll be back. I'll call you back, or I'm gonna talk to my wife. But I think doing such a good job and pouring everything that you have into that person with good intention, close or not, if you do a good job when they get off the phone, even if they were like really had a like real objection, or if it was a stall, they're gonna think about like what we really talked about in that call, and if they are really having this pain point, of not making money, of not having the right mindset, not being in the physical shape, whatever the pain is, and then they're gonna think, dang, this guy was really cool. If I'm gonna do anything, it's gonna be with this guy. And if I calls back after 90 days or 6 months, and I'll even to this day, we'll have salespeople that will call old leads, and they're like, I wanna work with Danny. And because I had one impactful, good conversation.
That's what it's all about, man. And you guys have created that culture over there now, where it's like, I feel like there's obviously you, Andy, Justin with Earn It All, even a guy like Peter. Like everybody just seems like a down-to-earth human being. You're just trying to help people. And if you can get through to people and realize like, oh, he's a good guy, and like he's just doing what he has to do to make a living too, at the end of the day, it's like, oh, he's just trying to help me with my policies, trying to help me, like, even if they're calling you sometimes, it's like, how can we help each other? It's like a win-win scenario at 100%. The end of the day. Which, like, what are the quote-unquote principles you would say that it would take to be a key member and a key component of the Elliott Group?
Dude, you're asking some good questions. I would say heart, being authentic, having, not necessarily energy, but like passion. I think team, like, the willingness to want to be a part of something bigger than yourself. I think those are some key things. Just grit, and like, you don't have to be the most skilled, right? But I think just being authentic, being high energy, having the heart, and then wanting something bigger than just yourself. Because if you have selfish intent around us, our people will smell that, and the culture will almost force you out, because we're all one big mission, one big tribe that are all striving towards a common goal. And even though that, Andy allows me to have my own brand, and Justin has his brand, and you see Sean Pollard, you see the twins, some of our core guys, they have kind of their own brand within the Elliott Group, but it's like we're all striving towards the same mission and the same belief.
That's right. Is that a tough thing to have your own brand under his name, or?
I don't think so. I think if anything,
as long as it like aligns and you're not doing anything stupid.
I think with anything, it's actually easier because all I have to do is really just like ride the path that he's already been paving.
Yeah.
And like, I'm already validated by being around a guy like Andy, where Andy said, this guy's helped me, this is one of my core guys. Like that actually expedites my entire process of trying to necessarily kind of build the brand, right?
Okay, yeah. I mean, that I was gonna say it's easy. It's like
and I brand myself within the Elliott Group. It's not like Danny Klein's brand, and then it's like it's all kind of the same thing. Hence why I wear my Elliott shirt is because like we are the brand, right? But like there is also Andy Elliott, and then there's Danny Klein, and like we are the Elliott Group.
There's like at real Danny Klein. This is the real Instagram. But that's like on the topic of like people just spreading negative energy. I feel like it's so easy to pick it out too. It could be one person out of 100. Yeah. The vibe here is becoming a little bit different. Like it's easy to pick up on that one person, even if it's not clear as day.
Yeah.
It's like, there's a lot of selfish intent in this person, and they're easy to weed out.
We've had a lot of like, fights as we've grown over the last 3-4 years within people, because sometimes people lose a little bit of their vision, and not to say that like, it's okay to like, fuck up and, be, thinking about this over here, but then that's why you have good people around you to say, hey, listen, what are your core values? What are you striving towards? Like, is this really your character? And you can say, hey dude, I messed up. This isn't who I am. And we can get right back on the path, of what it really is. But we've had a lot of people that's like, we've all are constantly, self-correcting with the mission,
because it is just like you have to be a go-getter to be a part of it.
Yes,
like these guys are hustlers, right?
Yeah, well, it's like you're gonna be around guys that are making a lot of money, or making an impact on this world, and you're gonna want to join that. And if you're not wanting to join that, you're eventually gonna kind of like wean yourself out in your own mindset of like, I'm not deserving of this, and you'll eventually like just you'll leave because you're around other winners and you're watching other people elevate, and then you're not. And there's just this thing where we've seen people they just don't make it. We don't really fire people unless you've done something horrible, and it's like people it comes down to this like belief
It's
issue.
like half insecurity, half just imposter syndrome. Like you probably walked in the first day, you're like, I can't do this. I can't live up to what Andy's doing, or a couple of these other guys.
I was making, so when I started training with Andy, I went from making $3,000 to $20,000 a month selling cars in Virginia, which $20,000 a month at 19 years old is like, dude, it's fucking crazy. I made 6 figures living at my mom and dad's house. Like, and I was like, hey mom, like, I'm ready to move out. I got like $50,000-$60,000 in the bank. And they're like, what the fuck? So, but like, it's just, it's just crazy.
Isn't that a game changer too, to go from like $3,000 in the bank to seeing like, I got 70 G's now to work with?
Dude.
And when you don't have that for a long period of time, it's like, I'm not taking this for granted, as opposed to someone who gets $100,000 right off the bat, just luck of the draw. They're spending that on the car, the watches,
all day
they're
long.
at the clubs. They're at Maya during the day, and it's just like, they're just blown because they don't know how to. They've never struggled to get it.
I stacked every single penny I had to be able to make a jump, and because I was like, back when I told you I was like playing Fortnite and doing all these things, I just started like I kept that same mindset of like I'm still like broke, like I haven't earned anything, like I'm still like nobody. I'm not doing anything massive, and this could all get taken away tomorrow, right? Like COVID hit, and they were like, hey, we're gonna fire half the sales force. You saw dealerships shut down, you saw like businesses shutting down, and I'm like, holy fuck, if I don't get like to this elite level to where they're not gonna fire me, then like I'm gonna lose my job, and I'm gonna lose all of this stuff that I worked so hard for.
Yeah.
So I try to always keep that chip on my shoulder, and even at any level, whether I'm making 6 figures, 7 figures, it's like it could all be stripped away from you, tomorrow.
Oh my God. And like you're at a point now, I feel like life's pretty good, but then you got to constantly remind yourself there's a reason I came here to begin with, and it can be taken away.
Yep.
And I got to keep going and going and going and going.
I think it boils down to, I always tell my guys, detach from the money. So like, if you always correlate your success directly week over week, month over month to just the money, right? You're gonna find yourself falling short sometimes, and you're gonna find yourself and your mindset like going backwards because you're like, oh man, I had a bad month last month, and it's like, no, listen, if you're progressing towards something, if you started doing the small daily activities and you made progress, right? It may have not shown here, right? Like if I traveled to do a couple more podcasts, I'm outside of the sales office, I may have not closed a few extra deals that week or that month, but what is the connection worth with me and you? What's the connection worth with me and the other guy? and that growth gets exponential once you take a step back to take another 5 or 6 steps forward.
Oh, I think this is totally worth your time. You're making a great investment right now.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
amazing
great,
investment.
and you would know. It's like, oh, I want to introduce you to Nicky here, who has 13 followers, and he's just like starting his podcast. You'd probably be like, maybe on a weekend for like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
We could do that. But like, you're introduced. You're in a core circle who connects you to the people that they genuinely think would be a good fit, like a good connection for you guys. Like Justin wouldn't have introduced us if he didn't think like, oh, two, up and coming hungry kids that should probably benefit knowing each other.
I think it's one of the best like value adds, and it's so funny because immediately when I think of getting invited on your podcast, I'm trying to stack like I call it like stack IOUs, right? Because now you have invited me on your podcast, which you've now deposited value my way. So I play this game where I'm now going to try to put so much value your way to the next person that you meet. You're like, oh, dude, this guy Danny, he's been helping me out so much. So that way I have like, I don't want to say like rent in your head because it's not a bad thing, but it's like I want to stack so many wins and do so good by people that like they're kind of forced to like help me elevate because they're like, oh man, this guy's helping me so much that like you're not going to forget about me.
Oh, this might not be a quote unquote sales call, but like you're going to get referrals from me. Just being like, oh dude, I sat down with Danny finally. You got to meet Danny Klein.
Yeah. I thought that was cool that Nick referred you over, man. It was like, just been doing a couple different podcasts and just sharing my message, and it goes back to being the content. I'm just me. I'm just just 24-year-old kid that's strived a little bit, made a little bit more money, developed some skill sets, and like I'm no different than anybody other than just a little bit of commitment, a little bit of dedication, and a little bit of an identity shift.
Yeah. How often do people mistake you for someone that's way older?
9 times out of 10. 9 times out of 10.
Yep,
9 times out of 10. Unless you say like, hey, what's my age? They automatically know that you're younger.
For me, it's like 29. I'm gonna guess. No.
We look like we're right around the 30.
I guess it's the beards and everything.
Yeah, all the beard oil and the combing up before the podcast.
Yeah, the cream and everything. I was clean shaven for like the first 4 months this year, and it's just night and day. I'm like, oh, I look way better with the beard.
100%. I shaved it once, and I was like, who
What did I do?
are you?
You see all like the red spots, and you're like, oh no.
I would never buy anything from this kid.
No, it feels great, but like you just look inexperienced without a beard.
There's something about like, I think there's an unspoken rule between like men. If you have a nice groomed beard, trim, clean shaven, there's just like a mutual level of respect of like this guy, takes care of himself. More or less like also too, like when you're in shape, you're like, oh, this guy takes care of himself because like, there's a lot of people that don't have the best groomed beards. And so it's like when you see one, it's like just a little sign of like respect that's unspoken, I think.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. You're like, all right, this guy, you can trust him.
Yeah.
Which is good. When it comes to like podcasts and everything, I know Andy's got his.
Yep.
I know Dan's doing a lot of podcasts with Alpha Army. Obviously, Rio has his space over there. Are you thinking about starting a show?
Yes, so it's been on my mind because I've been on other people's shows, and like we have 3 podcast places that are at the Lion's Den. We got the Real Financial Podcast, we got the 1%er podcast, and then we got the Young Closer podcast.
3 different setups or same
3
studio?
different setups.
Like same.
Yeah, so one was like a room that's like split in half, and then there's another one that's like in another training room. And so I'm like, man, I'm gonna be the guy with another podcast, and I think that was that like limiting belief for like a little bit until I was just on so many other people's shows where I'm like, man, I can now start to, have a show myself, and I can now start to, elevate other people because, I'm doing something right.
And it's a simple, like, and Hire will say it all the time, and it's such a simple, thing to do. It's like, oh, start a podcast, and immediately, provided you take time to build your audience, you're going to provide value for someone.
Yep.
So people will want to come on. They'll connect you with people.
Yep.
If they like you, they'll connect you to more people, and then all of a sudden, everything starts to snowball.
There's like the relationships are like one of the biggest things because you have like somewhat of like an excuse that's an immediate exchange of value to not only start off a relationship, but to also like keep it ongoing,
Oh, dude, like this is not going to be the last time we see each other. It's
Yeah,
like,
this
oh, thanks
is like
for
the
coming on my
start.
show.
Yeah.
And then we never talk to each other again. I tell everybody, I'm like, oh, so we'll talk again, hopefully like a few weeks, a month. They're like, oh, really? I'm like, I want to be your friend. I wouldn't have invited you on if I didn't think you seemed like a total cool guy.
Yeah, agreed.
Sometimes it happens, but that's what it is.
That's how it was with like Austin Zabak. Like, I got to connect you with him. He's been killing it. Like, he's a local real estate guy. He's like 27 years old up in North Scottsdale. I think you'd be great for him, like for the podcast. But it's just so funny, like when you get into that like realm of like all the podcasts. Because now I'm thinking like, me and him immediately connected after, and we're like, now we're hanging out. And we're like, planning dates, like go on his boat, and like we're going on double dates with like him and his girl, and it's like the podcast is just like one side of like the aspect of like the business,
It's a lot easier than saying, especially with girls, where it's just like, hey, you want to go hang out one day? You seem cool. It's like we're probably getting left on red. Where it's like, oh, you want to come on my podcast? And it's like, oh, it's like immediate value. Like we're going to create content for each other. We're going to collab.
And I think it forced you to now be around like just a higher level person. And like, not to say there's anything wrong with like, just being a normal person, but like, if somebody's very boring and, they don't have anything cool to share or no story, nothing special about them, you're not going to want to have them in front of your audience because like, they're just normal people, right? Like you want somebody that's got something, someone that's got some passion or a skill set or something, So it's like immediate, like added.
I'm a big believer that everybody has something about them that makes them really cool. It's just like you got to ask the right questions and you really got to dig. Like some people are just like, I'm not that interested. I'm very boring, kind of routine. It's like, no, there's got to be something. Like where you come from, what's your family do, what are your interests? Like just open up a little bit.
You've probably learned to get really good at asking questions. Like I've noticed you've asked some really good questions, and I've been on like, I've been on some podcasts where it's like, it almost is like very regular questions, and it's like, I knew that these step-by-step questions were coming versus like you're asking really good questions. I'm like, wow, I'm really glad that you asked that because I can deliver something like that leans into my skill set or leans into something that's like off my heart.
It's about having conversations, not interviews, you know? And the best interviewers will tell you that. When I first started this, it was like, all right, questions 1 through 10, and I'm thinking,
you get better.
And they're talking, I'm thinking about the next question that's on my list, right? I'm not actually having a conversation.
Being present.
Yeah, because like, that's where like I don't know. I had no idea what we were going to talk about today until you got here. I'm like, all right, let's see where the
either.
I know his background, and we'll talk about obviously what I see on social media because that's my only point of contact at this point. But like I know the conversation is going to be good because I know I'm going to ask good questions. Danny, like just through your text messages, I'm like he's going to bring the energy. It's perfect. And sometimes you run into people where you don't really know. They're like, yep, I'll be there at 10:30. Great. Yep. See you there. And I'm just like, all right, I wonder who they're like, what they're actually going to be. Like I was in Vegas this past weekend, and we had Wiz Khalifa's DJing.
Nice.
But he was literally just, because I DM'd him maybe like 2 days before we were heading out there, and he's like, what time you need me there? I'm like, does 4:30 work? He's like, bet, see you there. And I'm like, okay. And then it wasn't until like the next day, I'm like, hey, just confirming this still works. Left me on red. So I'm like, I wonder if he's not coming. And then he showed up, and he was one of the coolest guys ever. I'm like, well, you don't really text, because like honestly, I didn't know you yet, so like I didn't want to give you like good energy right off the bat, or like not good energy, but like I didn't really want to like be above and beyond if you weren't cool. But it's like, now you're cool. Here's my number. You're like, well, and they're like, oh, come smoke a joint with me and Wiz next time you're in town. I'm just like, cool. Yeah, definitely. I mean,
I think a lot of people, like, I've also, like, taught my guys that, like, texting is also, like, a skill. Yeah. Just, like, you have the perception of, like, I don't know. Like, we'll teach, like, our team and we'll teach other people, like, dude, when you text, like, you got to make sure that you use the right punctuation, that you use, like, emojis, or you text, like, to the format, right? And, like, you can tell, like, I can tell when I'm texting, like, an older person, or I can tell when, certain situations, So texting is, like, a skill, too, like, in sales. For anybody that's watching this that, like, is in sales or has business, you should use emojis, you should like use GIFs, you should like translate that energy, just like you said that like you knew that I was going to bring the energy, you knew that like from just like using emojis or just from like, the way I was texting and communicating.
Like for me, I'm an the exclamation point? I'm an I don't even know the
explanation point. I use them on everything.
Exclamation point whore. That's what I am for almost everything. Hey, exclamation point, everything. And just like, see you there at 4:30. What, it's like, they're like, you use that way too much. I'm like, no, I'm genuinely excited to see you.
I'm excited about everything.
So, when you have like endless projects or ideas going around and swirling around in your head, and you have so many connections where you just like text someone and be like, hey, what do you think of this? Hey, put me in touch with that person. And then you have all of these projects snowballing, and it's like, all right,
it's momentum.
I can't wait.
It's like once you get that momentum in business and self-development and anything, it almost just like, it just moves faster and faster and faster. It's like once you start posting content, the content gets better. You start the podcast, you're reading off a list, and then like, a year later, you're just like over here with Wiz Khalifa's DJ, and you're with guys that are just like, you're like, dude, how did I even get here? And it's like,
Just start. Put your feet in the water. It's going to be cold at first, but I promise you, like, it's just keep going, and then it just becomes like clockwork. It's just like butter, man.
Yep.
Like with editing reels and stuff, I've been doing it for years. It's just like I know I got to do it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't want to do it. It's like going to the gym. Like some mornings you just don't want to get up and do it. You got to do it though, because at the end you're gonna be like, even if you don't feel great, because there's sometimes you go to the gym probably and you're like, it didn't feel that great, but it's like that's expected. You do it anyway. It's just about the consistency and training your mind, saying, I have to do it today. Like you might be out with your girl or something, you're like, oh, I need to get my 45 minutes in. Can we do that before we go out to dinner?
Yep.
Something
I'm
like
big
that.
on that. I'm big on making sure that like I stay consistent no matter what's going on, because the minute you stop being consistent is the minute that you pull back on your momentum. You know, it's like, I've had times where like I was posting every single day on social media, or I was training every single day for a certain thing, and I noticed myself, just like you said, like, 2 days goes by and you're like, dude, what's going on? And it's like, you got to constantly just a little bit every single day is like one of the biggest tips, or one of the biggest like takeaways. If you're trying to just elevate your girl, or you're watching this podcast and you're trying to like take away something, just stack the wins every single day, the little things. Even if you got in a 15-minute workout or a 30-minute workout before you went out, it's better than not doing one.
Have you done the 75 hard yet?
I have. Yeah, I did that when I first got hired.
I feel like when you're into it, it's like, no, it's reading 10 pages a day.
It's not even a workout. It's not even a workout program. It's like just a discipline and a mindset.
Change your mindset.
Yeah, mindset.
And 9 times out of 10 people turn out to have like wicked six packs.
I failed a couple times based off of the gallon. I didn't do a picture one time. I think I failed 3
everybody
or 4
gets the progress picture. That's the one thing.
I personally hated the outdoor workout the most. Like, because I could get it in the gym, but then like when it came to running or just doing push-ups outside alone or doing something outside alone, I just absolutely like hated it for whatever reason. Like that was the most difficult part for me.
I feel it's always, when my friends have done it, it's the progress pic, and then what's the other thing? Because you get to pick your own diet, right?
Yeah.
You get to pick
Stick
your own
to a diet.
Maybe it's the 10 pages of reading.
See, that's where people like get like, like, oh, this is my diet. They're like, I had Sean, one of our guys that was working for us. He's like, I'm doing 75 hard, and he's like, eating like pasta and eating like certain things where it's like it's got this amount of calories, and he's like loading so much on. He's like, I'm doing a bulking diet. I'm like, dude, that doesn't count. Like, if you don't have any difference like physically after 75 hard is like over, then like I don't think that you stuck to your diet. No. Like I failed one time. I ate like an Airhead because I didn't know you could have like a snack. I was like, I'm just gonna eat like one Airhead. And then I went for like a week and I listened to the podcast, and Andy was like, no fucking Hershey Kissies, no like candy, and I'm like, fuck, dude, I failed last week.
Oh, I guess I got to restart again. You're like at day 75. You're like, oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I guess those last days didn't count. But yeah, I want to start it. My goal with a group of buddies of mine is to start it in September and break 75 days on Thanksgiving Eve. That way we could just pig out on Thanksgiving. But I feel like once you get to 75, it's like, why would I stop now? I feel great. My discipline's never been better. My mindset's never been better.
I noticed so many little changes when I did 75 hard. It wasn't even about like, again, the workouts, but I noticed myself like I'm super like I have a natural like tendency to just be like lazy. Yeah. Right. And I think all guys like have this natural like tendency to just kind of like relax sometimes. Or, like I would never like want to do my laundry. I'd always put it off for another day, or to clean up the kitchen a little bit more. And I found myself, instead of even thinking about like, oh, I'll do that tomorrow, I just started acting. Yeah. So instead of having that thought of like, oh, we'll do that later, I just was moving fast, and it killed that procrastination inside of me.
Yeah, it's gonna sound like a broken record. It's so easy for it to come back. It's just that one day, oh, no, I don't have to do it today. It's just one day. And then it spirals. Like there's that part in the back of your brain saying like, oh no, I didn't do it yesterday. So it's like, I cannot do this if I don't really want to.
It's like anything in life, It's like you skip the gym one day, or a guy that can't handle drinking has one drink and now he has 4, and it's just like this never-ending spiral. And people think that like, oh, just because it's not drinking, or just because it's not this bad thing, like it's not that bad. Same thing with like the above average on it. And just because you justify your bullshit excuses to either do something or to not, that is like generally the entryway for like moving and slowing down and procrastinating, and putting yourself back in that position, moving backwards instead of moving forwards.
And I think another key component in all of that moving forward, at least specifically, I don't know a lot of words. I don't know why I'm a podcast host. Honestly, sometimes I'm like, my vocabulary is terrible and I just can't get certain words out.
You know what's funny? You know what's funny about that? like for a long time I was thinking about like, how do I have the right speaker, like how do I speak, you know, like Andy Elliott speaks, how do I not stutter, how do I not use the word and like once I realized that, like, you know, like you're saying that, like I didn't even notice, you know, most people don't even really care.
Oh, no.
You know, like, yeah, like
it's when it's your own worst critique too.
Dude,
I'll go back and I'll be like,
100%.
I say like in every sentence.
Yes.
I need to eliminate
I was just
that.
about to say the word like.
Yeah.
When I was like first started speaking, I was like, oh, I'm gonna practice. I'm gonna make sure that I don't do this, and I make sure I say that. And it was like, well, why don't I just focus on teaching what I'm teaching and the substance, and not worry about if people think that I'm nervous, or, you know, if people think that I use the word because all that won't matter if the delivery and the message and the teaching is of value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're right. Like, I wouldn't have noticed anything you said until maybe I go back and edit it later, and I'm like, oh wow, like he said a lot of.
Look at guys like Elon Musk.
Oh my God, right?
Like Elon Musk is one of the most like awkward, you know, expressive like characters where it's like, dude, he'll have a 15-second pause to think about what he's gonna say, and it's like one of the most awkward speaking things. But people now, because he's done it so much, where people think that like, oh, he's thinking, his brain is processing, like it's gonna be like this intelligent thing, and you know, they now start to think that like that's actually in his favor and that's his style, versus trying to be this perfect speaker that is articulate and is hitting every single nail on the head.
Oh, that's right. I mean, it comes down to action over everything else. Nobody will really care about those little things that you probably worry about.
Yeah.
If you're actually
good enough, if you're actually producing results.
Yeah. But what I was going to say, for your specific situation, you're what, 9 months into a relationship? If I did my homework correctly.
Wow.
You and Valerie.
Talk about the research. Yes.
Yeah, got it
Yeah,
right.
she was gonna come, but she was actually she's doing some hair at
that's
the.
what you should do. I
at
mean,
the salon. I bring her everywhere we go.
I mean, you should do podcasts together. Interviewing couples is my favorite thing, especially couples that are like just building their empire together.
Yes. It is so big right now, and I've seen so many people that like, if you don't have your significant other on the same page as you, you're not going to be able to grow together. Mm-hmm. You know, because if I learn one thing and then now I'm like, hey babe, I'm doing this thing, and I don't get her on the same page, she's like confused because we're all in this mission together. Like you share your life together. We see so many couples in business that they're not sharing what they're doing, and then they're like, why are we disconnected? Why are we, you know, growing apart? Well, it's like your business, your personal life and your business life is intertwined, you know?
Mm-hmm. Like, what's your work-life balance? It's like life is work and work is life.
Yeah. You know, like, dude, I think if you're wanting to truly be successful, there isn't really like a work-life balance. Like, I can't really turn it off. Now, I like to go and enjoy certain vacations, and there are times where like I'll turn it off, but
of course,
majority of the time, like if I truly love something and I'm pursuing something that like I enjoy, like I don't want to turn that off. I don't want to balance that. I'd rather lean in, you know, to that passion.
No, your body eventually will tell you like, go take a vacation, and that's how you know. It's like, all right, I'm not burning out, but like I need to let loose a little bit.
Yep.
But like specifically for you and Valerie, when did you guys meet? How did you know it was like the right fit? Because it has to be the right person.
Yes,
right?
100%. So it was actually through mutual friends. So one of our twins, you know, we have two twins, Ian and Evan Macklin. They were, you know,
right.
Yeah. So they're also coaches with Andy Elliott, and we were at the Optima Kierland up north, and we're at the rooftop and we're just hanging out. And then she was there, and she had followed me on Instagram. And like we were just kind of going back and forth, but I had just been so busy that I hadn't made any time to like go out on dates because I was just focused on building me, and you know I didn't want to go out here at Scottsdale and just get distracted with women because what I was trying to do was just more important than anything. But like right out the gate, like we just connected. We were just like having fun and laughing, and like I hadn't had that in such a long time because like I've been around so many people that like, you know, I can't have good conversations with, or you know, especially out here in like Scottsdale, women are
terrible.
Yeah, women aren't the best, right?
Like I was saying before, they're very just like, they don't have any personality, but they're really pretty, and that's why they're getting by.
No, she's very fun. She's very understanding, and you know, and just like any couple, like you know, we're not perfect, but we've like accepted that we're gonna do life together. We're gonna grow, and we're gonna always like make sure that we keep each other on the same page. Mm-hmm. And
what does she do?
She's a hairstylist.
Oh,
yeah.
I mean, they make great money, and also like they build great relationships with their clientele.
Yeah, she's a closer. She's a closer, bro.
Like, as long as you know how to have a conversation, you get to know, like, you're just sitting there in the chair, and it's just like, oh, how's everything going? Dude, all the tea that's being spilled.
The salon and the extensions and all the products, like, dude, the shit's expensive. You know, she tells me sometimes that, a service is like $1,500, and then, like, at the end, they have the product. So just like any other business, for anybody that's not aware, like, every business has a certain quota or certain sales aspect to it. and like how she does in the experience for the 2 or 3 or sometimes 4 hours to do some of these extensions and these long, like, you know, processes to get women's hair done.
Yeah.
Like there is an upsell factor to it, and like how you make that client, you know, feel.
Yeah. So you guys, in a way, mostly in a way, come from the same cloth or cut from the same cloth.
We're definitely, you know, communicators. We're definitely like people
That's the
of
biggest
people
thing,
of
right?
like service, you know. So we're like just helping others. You know, she's helping other women, like, you know, look prettier and help enjoy their hair, and I'm making, you know, helping other people make more money and have a better mindset and have a, you know, clear target and goal.
Is she young like us?
She is 29, so she's got some.
Okay.
Yeah, she's a little
That's
bit older.
good.
Yeah,
Good
she
for you.
Yeah, she's definitely more mature, so she keeps me in line, keeps me in check. You know, not be so
I feel
stupid.
like age is just a number. I feel like I'm a 24-year-old going on 55.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, when you're dating an older woman, there's a little bit of a different, you know,
Yeah.
complex that comes to it. And not that she's necessarily older, but, you know, they have, you know, women definitely want to, you know, have certain things. And, you know, we were, like, when we first started dating, she's like, well, you're 24 and I just turned 29. And, like, you know, by 35, I still don't want to be, like, dating, right? So it's like, you know, because you see guys that, like, women and men, they'll date for years. And she's like, I just need to move a little bit faster, you know?
Yeah, I know people who have been in I guess you could call
dating.
it dating for like a decade.
Like,
But
we've
I
been dating
also-
for 10 years. Like,
I also
you're in
have-
and you're out.
I know, it's like, oh, one of my buddy's one of my buddy's ex-girlfriend's parents dated for like 24 years.
Oh, my God.
They never tied the knot. They had a
Did they
daughter
get,
and
did they
everything.
get married?
Eventually. But they're like, we dated for the first 24 years. And he just kind of laughed it off and looked at his date and he's like, oh no, they were serious?
Yeah. It's
But
like, did you forget
But I
about
also have friends who are like, after the first date, yeah, we're already talking engagement. And like, that's
Yeah.
on the other end of the spectrum. I'm like, I don't know, man.
I definitely like to test, like to make sure and go through a bunch of different situations. Like I'm not one where it's like, oh, it's love. Like I'm gonna, like it's right out the gate. Like I want to go through some hard shit together to know that like this person is gonna
yeah.
be by my side, and it can be a few months. It doesn't necessarily have to be a few years, but like I want to go through some hard shit to
You could
to
know
like,
in a few
where,
months.
to where the character. Yes, 100%.
And you probably knew in a few months, like, okay, like I hope this lasts forever. But I'm
Yeah.
also smart enough to be like, let's wait a few years. My thing is 3 years.
3 years.
You go through, obviously, the honeymoon phase, no matter how long that lasts.
Yep.
But like a good phase, a really rough phase where you have to go through shit together. And then just a phase where it's like, all right, the dust has settled on the honeymoon phase. Been through shit, like how are we going to continue to grow together? Do we truly want to be in each other's lives at that
If
point?
you treat it like the beginning, there'll never be an end.
Exactly.
That's what Andy Elliott and Jacqueline always say. So I'm always aware if a certain aspect of my life isn't where I need to be. You know, I always think like, what was it like in the beginning? You know, when I first started selling, and I first got bigger paychecks. Like, what was I doing in the beginning? How hard was I working? Same thing with my relationship. You know, if it was amazing in the beginning, and if something had had not gone in the direction, like what am I not going on dates? Am I not communicating as much? Or is there certain things that I'm not doing? And I know it's like for people that have been in relationships for a long time, I think they almost just date and they almost like settle. And it's like, for the people that are not making the move to, get married after 5 or 10 years, it's like, have you not gone through enough stuff? Or are you not still treating it like it's the first few
You
months?
have to continue to date them, right? What is, do you guys have like a specific project that you'd want to do together down the line? And like when you talk about building your own empire with Andy and Jacqueline and her with, obviously, like what is kind of,
We've definitely
there's
been-
no end game. Like I'm going to die in this chair, right?
Yeah.
Like I love what I do, right? Like you love what you do and you want to continue doing that so you can provide the lifestyle that you desperately desire. But like, do you have a kind of a project in mind that you'd want to do one day?
We've been exploring like a couple different things. So she's been like helping me and kind of been like almost like an assistant in a few areas because she still has, her full-time job doing hair, as of right now. And we don't know what, so the future looks like, but like in terms of like what she's doing for like salon, right? But we've talked about like flipping houses together. She loves like interior design. Like she's kind of like found a passion for that. And I'm like, well, you could add that aspect because I don't know how to do design. I understand the logistics of like getting a deal and making it make money, right? But like, we're kind of just exploring a couple of different avenues and figuring out how we really work together because we weren't working together in the beginning of a relationship, and now we're noticing that like I'm working even longer because we're like, hey, we're solid. So I'm like getting home at like 10 o'clock, and then she's like, oh shit, can I help you out with a few things so that way, tomorrow you might be able to come home like a little bit earlier because if I'm off at this time, I could do a few things so that way we can enjoy a little bit more together. Because I know that you have goals and I support you. So,
Yeah, it just stems from communication. Like, what do you got going on today? What do I got going on today? Hey, I noticed you're not doing so well right now. How can I help? How can I kind of unload that burden for you? Whatever it is. That's what it comes down to, man.
Yeah, we're just exploring it. You know, I'm one of those people where, again, like, kind of that hippie mindset where it's like, you know, if she does want to be involved, then she'll kind of make herself involved. And if she leans more towards, like, you know, I want to do, like, interior design stuff, and, you know, I'm doing business deals with real estate and wholesaling or certain things, or wherever the wind, like, takes me in that direction, you know what I mean? Because I don't ever want to force someone to, like, do something that they don't like, vice versa. Like, I'm not going to go and, you know, help her with, you know, salon stuff, because this is, like, not my thing, right? Vice versa, if, like, I'm doing something and she's like, that's not her avenue, I don't want to force her and, like, put her in a box and say, like, oh, we have to do this because it's how we're going to work together. There's so many things that we could do.
The opportunities are endless.
That's true.
Especially if you're taking care of people, man. And you're killing it. Everybody says you're killing it. Now I can confirm that, yeah, he's got his shit together.
Just having fun, man.
Sure.
I think, like, if you always do the right thing, if you're authentic, if you're unapologetically you don't have to be perfect. Everyone's trying to chase this perfect picture, this perfect person, but if you can just be you, if you can do good by people, if you can put yourself in the right rooms and just keep forcing that growth and keep staying uncomfortable, you'll find yourself in the right rooms with the right people, and you'll find yourself that is, like, you know, you keep playing up, keep playing up.
So where can the people find you on social media?
They can find me
at camera right there.
At Instagram at official Danny Klein on IG.
Guys, this was episode 742 of the podcast. Thank you to Mr. Danny Klein for joining us in Jared's penthouse in downtown Phoenix, Arizona.
Let's go.
Episode 742. Remember to comment, like, and subscribe on our YouTube channel at Jack O'Hara TV.